Good afternoon, everyone. This is the news with b.c.begley. I am your host, and it's Wednesday, September 26, 2025. And here are the top news stories for today. Former FBI Director James Comey has been indicted on 2 felony counts, making false statements to Congress and obstructing a congressional investigation. He is expected to turn himself in on Friday, with an arraignment scheduled for October the 9th in Alexandria before Judge Michael S. Nachmanoff. The charges stem from Comey's September 30th, 2020 testimony about his handling of the Trump-Russia probe known as Crossfire Hurricane. Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel emphasized that no one is above the law and pledged accountability for abuses of power. Comey denied wrongdoing, asserting his innocence and expressing confidence in the judicial system. The indictment alleges he falsely claimed to not have authorized an FBI employee as an anonymous source and obstructed a congressional inquiry into sensitive information, Fox News has reported. The case is handled by the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District of Virginia, while investigations into the origins of the Trump-Russia probe continue, including scrutiny of former CIA Director John Brennan. The Pentagon is convening an unusual in-person meeting next week with top U.S. military leaders from around the world, though the agenda has not yet been disclosed. Approximately 800 generals, admirals, and their senior enlisted advisors have been invited, a gathering normally conducted via secure video teleconference. The meeting has raised concerns about a potential leadership purge, as War Secretary Pete Hegseth has previously proposed cutting 20% of senior officers. Earlier directives included reducing about 100 generals and admirals and implementing at least a 20% cut among 4-star officers. Hegseth has framed the reductions under a less generals, more GIs policy, citing a high general-to-troop ratio compared to World War II. The Pentagon is also preparing a new national defense strategy prioritizing homeland defense over the traditional Indo-Pacific focus, Fox News has reported. The strategy may prompt a global review and possible repositioning of U.S. forces at bases worldwide. The U.S. Navy recently conducted multiple test launches of Trident II D5 ballistic missiles off the coast of Florida, demonstrating a system capable of delivering thermonuclear warheads thousands of miles away. An Ohio-class submarine fired the unarmed missiles from a submerged position, marking the 197th consecutive successful test. Marines and airmen were pre-notified with safety zones established along the missile paths, which were visible as far as Puerto Rico. The Trident II, operational since 1990, is part of the U.S. and UK sea-based nuclear deterrent and can travel over 7,500 miles at speeds of up to Mach 24. It can carry multiple warheads, including the W-88 thermonuclear and the W-76-2 low-yield options, with high accuracy. Director Johnny Wolf emphasized the importance of maintaining readiness and developing next-generation strategic systems to ensure continued sea-based deterrence, the Express has reported. The tests come amid global tensions, including escalations involving Russia, North Korea, and China. An 8th U.S. Navy warship, the USS Stockdale, has arrived in the Caribbean to strengthen counter-cartel operations near Venezuela. The growing naval presence, including air support from F-35 jets and MQ-9 Reaper drones, aims to detect, monitor, and indirect illicit trafficking while supporting homeland security. Coast Guard law enforcement detachments are conducting boardings and seizures where unauthorized, while the 2 Iwo Jima Amphibious Ready Group and the 22nd Marine Expeditionary Unit provide crisis response capabilities. The mission aligns with the U.S. administration's designation of certain cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, enabling broader law enforcement and international coordination tools. Legal experts warn that using military forces against criminal groups could blur the lines between police and military authority and challenge domestic and international law. U.S. officials have also posted a reward linked to Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, whom they accuse of directing criminal operations, the Express has reported. Lawmakers and scholars are calling for clear rules of engagement and congressional oversight amid increasing scrutiny of lethal indirections at sea. Former French President Nicolas Sarkozy has been sentenced to 5 years in prison for criminal conspiracy, accused of receiving around $50 million in laundered cash from the late Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi to fund his 2007 election campaign. The Paris Correctional Court found Sarkozy guilty of conspiring with close aides, including his ex-chief of staff, who was sentenced to 6 years, while another minister received a 2-year electronic bracelet sentence. Sarkozy was acquitted of receiving stolen public funds and passive corruption, but will also pay a €100,000 fine. The court ruled the crimes were, quote, exceptionally serious, marking the first time a former French president has been convicted of using foreign funds in this way. Evidence included notes from Lebanese arms dealer who allegedly delivered the cash to Sarkozy's aides in suitcases, and he was recently found dead in Beirut. Sarkozy has previously been convicted in other corruption and illegal campaign funding cases, and has worn an electronic tag under house arrest, the Metro has reported. The historic verdict follows a decade-long investigation highlighting the unprecedented legal accountability of a former French head of state. Over 500,000 people have signed a petition opposing the UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer's plan to introduce mandatory digital ID cards or BRIC cards for all adults. Starmer argues the cards will make it harder to work illegally and improve border security, while critics warn they risk mass surveillance and cyber attacks on personal data. The digital ID would also integrate driving licenses, passports, NHS services, and national insurance numbers, and aim to curb visa overstays. Labor faces pressure to tackle illegal immigration, with over 1,100 people arriving on small boats in a single week. Opponents, including Nigel Farage and the Tory leader, dismissed the scheme as a gimmick that will not stop illegal crossings. Initial cost estimates suggest £400 million to build the system and £10 million annually to run the associated app, the Metro has reported. Britain remains the only European country without an ID card, after a previous attempt by Tony Blair in 2006 was scrapped. Billionaire Peter Thiel, co-founder of Palantir and PayPal, reportedly warned that regulating artificial intelligence could accelerate the rise of the Antichrist during a lecture in San Francisco. Thiel suggested that fearing or restricting technological progress risks empowering evil. This, according to attendees cited by the Wall Street Journal. The lecture series, organized by the Acts 17 Collective, explores biblical themes and technology, including Thiel's view that existential threats make society ripe for authoritarian control. Palantir recently announced a £1.5 billion UK investment, with the Ministry of Defence expected to spend up to £750 million on AI technology that could assist in battlefield targeting. Critics have raised concerns about Palantir's involvement in military operations, including its software used by Israel's IDF, while the company denies direct AI-assisted targeting roles. Thiel has previously warned of a, quote, one-world totalitarian state emerging from AI fears, and controversially suggested public figures like Greta Thunberg could be the Antichrist, the Times of London has reported. Palantir, named after the Seeing Stones in The Lord of the Rings, has been involved in high-profile defense projects, including locating Osama bin Laden. Two scientists, Eliezer Yudkowsky and Nate Soares, warned that artificial intelligence could ultimately lead to human extinction if left unchecked. Running the Machine Intelligence Research Institute in Berkeley, They have studied AI for 25 years and fear that super intelligent machines could surpass human thought at unprecedented levels. In their book, If Anyone Builds It, Everyone Dies, argues that AI, programmed to achieve goals relentlessly, could develop its own desires and strategies beyond human control. The researchers predict AI could hack cryptocurrencies, fund robot factories, or even create viruses capable of wiping out life on Earth, estimating a 95 to 99% chance of a catastrophe. They urge governments to consider extreme measures, such as bombing data centers, to prevent AI from reaching superintelligence, the Metro has reported. Real-world AI examples like models from Anthropic and OpenAI have already demonstrated goal-directed behavior that subverts intended controls. Yudkowsky and Soares caution that humanity must act now to mitigate risks before AI becomes impossible to control. Microsoft has disabled the Israeli Defense Ministry's access to certain services after finding evidence it used the company's Azure cloud platform to surveil Gaza citizens. The move follows an internal investigation triggered by a Guardian report that Israel stored and monitored data on millions of Palestinian mobile phone calls. Microsoft determined the ministry violated its terms of service by using cloud tools for surveillance, and the probe is ongoing. Microsoft's president, Brad Smith, emphasized the company's commitment to privacy as a fundamental right and a core element of customer trust. The Israeli Defense Ministry, the Prime Minister's office, and the military have not yet commented on the matter. Microsoft has historically provided Azure services, email, file management, and analytics tools to Israel while continuing to support its cybersecurity efforts, the Wall Street Journal has reported. The investigation specifically centers on a Microsoft data center in the Netherlands where the Defense Ministry's data was stored. Federal officials say the Dallas shooter, identified as Joshua Jan, specifically targeted U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents. Notes found at his residence showed hatred toward ICE and revealed that he had planned the attack in advance. Jan used a ladder to climb onto a nearby rooftop early on Wednesday morning, where he then opened fire with a legally purchased 8mm bolt-action rifle. 3 detainees inside a van were hit, with 1 killed and 2 critically injured, while law enforcement risked their lives to move others to safety. Authorities said Jan acted alone, citing another note in which he wrote, quote, "Yes, it was me." He was later found dead of a self-inflicted gunshot wound by Dallas police officers, CBS News has reported. ICE officials blamed, quote, "wild rhetoric and the use of tracking apps for fueling attacks on ICE agents, which they say have surged by 1,000%. Okay, here's a look at the live weather radar for today from the National Weather Service, and now here's the National Weather Forecast for today. Waves of low pressure moving along a nearly stationary frontal boundary will bring numerous showers and thunderstorms to much of the southeast Friday and into Saturday. Southern fetch of moisture around a slow-moving upper-level low to bring rounds of showers and thunderstorms with a threat of flash flooding to parts of the southwest in the next few days. And unseasonably warmth builds across the northern tier of the U.S. through the weekend. Elsewhere across the country, mainly dry weather is in store today and through the weekend, largely thanks to upper-level ridging. At least 10 inmates were killed in clashes between rival drug gangs inside a prison in Ecuador, police have said on Thursday. The riot is the second deadly prison outbreak this week, after 13 inmates and a guard were killed on Monday in another facility. Authorities identified the victims as members of 2 different gangs, 2 powerful gangs that were recently designated as foreign terrorist organizations by the United States. Graphic images showed bloodied corpses and decapitations, highlighting the brutality of the violence. Families gathered anxiously outside the prison seeking news of relatives. Since 2021, more than 500 inmates have died in Ecuador's overcrowded jails, which have become hubs of organized crime, CBS News has reported. Violence has surged nationwide as gangs tied to Mexican and Colombian drug cartels fight for control of drug routes, with over 70% of global cocaine now passing through Ecuador's ports. President Trump said Thursday that he will not allow Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to annex parts of the occupied West Bank. The announcement follows private assurances Trump gave Arab leaders and effectively shuts down Netanyahu's annexation plans. The Netanyahu government had been weighing annexation in response to recent recognition of a Palestinian state by several Western nations. Arab leaders, including those from the UAE, warned the U.S. that such a move would endanger the Abraham Accords, one of Trump's key foreign policy achievements. Earlier this week, Trump met leaders from Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Jordan, and other Muslim-majority countries who made halting annexation a condition of supporting his Gaza peace plan. Trump said he held positive calls with both Netanyahu and Arab leaders and believes a deal on Gaza is possible soon, Axios has reported. Netanyahu is expected to meet Trump at the White House on Monday to discuss the plan and Israel's path forward. World leaders at the UN General Assembly are pushing for an end to Sudan's war, which has created the world's worst displacement and humanitarian crisis. Alan Boswell of the International Crisis Group said this year's meeting could be a make or break for peace, as key powers have finally agreed on a roadmap. The conflict erupted in April of 2023 between Sudan's army and paramilitary forces, spreading from Khartoum to Darfur and beyond. UN agencies estimate at least 40,000 deaths, nearly 13 million displaced, and 24 million facing acute food insecurity. The United States, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and the UAE, known as the Quad, called on September the 12th for a 3-month humanitarian truce to allow aid deliveries, followed by permanent ceasefire. Their plan also calls for a 9-month transition to a civilian-led government, the Associated Press has reported. Quad leaders met again on Wednesday on the sidelines of the General Assembly to coordinate implementation of the roadmap. South Korea's military said it fired warning shots on Friday after a North Korean merchant ship briefly crossed the disputed Western Sea boundary. The vessel entered South Korean waters around 5 a.m. local time before retreating following audio warnings and gunfire. This, according to Seoul's Joint Chiefs of Staff. No North Korean forces returned fire. Officials said the response followed standard procedures and that South Korea remains on high alert to defend its territory. The Northern Limit Line has long been a flashpoint, with deadly clashes back in 2010 and frequent incursions by North Korean ships. Pyongyang does not recognize the boundary, instead claiming waters that extend deep into South Korean territory, the Associated Press has reported. Tensions remain elevated as North Korea advances its weapons program and strengthens ties with Russia while rejecting calls for renewed diplomacy. A new tropical storm battered the Philippines on Friday, leaving at least 4 people dead and forcing more than 433,000 residents to evacuate flood and landslide-prone villages. The storm, locally called Opong, struck eastern Samar late on Thursday, with winds cutting power and triggering flooding and minor landslides. Officials said 3 people were killed by falling debris and 1 by lightning, while roads and ports remain blocked. The storm follows Typhoon Ragasa, which killed at least 25 people in the Philippines and Taiwan before hitting China and Vietnam. Forecasters warned that the tropical storm could regain typhoon strength as it moves toward the South China Sea and Vietnam, the Associated Press has reported. The disaster has intensified anger over a corruption scandal in flood control projects, with whistleblowers alleging lawmakers diverted funds and built substandard infrastructure. The president of the Philippines, Ferdinand Marcos Jr., called the revelations horrible, saying corruption has worsened the country's vulnerability to deadly storms. The French Navy has seized 9.6 tons of cocaine, worth more than $600 million, from a fishing vessel off the coast of West Africa, officials announced on Thursday. The bust, carried out on Monday by 2 naval ships and a helicopter, followed a joint tip-off from French, British, and maritime intelligence services. Authorities said the vessel, which carried no national registration, was intercepted as part of France's long-running mission in the Gulf of Guyana, a region plagued by piracy. Images released showed officers unloading stacks of cocaine packages from the boat. The haul brings French maritime drug seizures to more than 54 tons in 2025 alone. Similar busts on fishing vessels have also been reported worldwide, including a U.S. Coast Guard operation earlier this year that netted 10,000 pounds of cocaine in the Atlantic, CBS News has reported. Officials warn that traffickers increasingly use fishing boats as cover for global smuggling routes. A Taiwanese court has sentenced 4 former staffers of the ruling Democratic Progressive Party to prison for spying for China in one of the island's highest-profile espionage cases. Among them was Huang Chu-jung, a former aide to President Lai Ching-te during his vice presidency, who received the heaviest sentence of 10 years plus a fine for espionage and money laundering. Huang was accused of relaying sensitive information to Chinese intelligence via encrypted apps and directing others to gather intelligence from senior officials, including former Foreign Minister Joseph Wu. The ex-deputy head of the DPP's Taiwan Institute of Democracy was also sentenced to 6 years and 2 months after pleading guilty, and 2 other aides received shorter terms while prosecutors may appeal for tougher sentences. President Lai has tightened security measures against suspected pro-China infiltration, labeling Beijing a, quote, foreign hostile force earlier this year, The Guardian has reported. Taiwan, which Beijing claims as its own territory, has faced growing espionage, disinformation, and cognitive warfare campaigns as China seeks to weaken resistance to unification. Rio de Janeiro's parliament has approved a controversial Wild West bonus scheme to reward police officers for neutralizing criminals, sparking outrage from human rights groups. Lawmakers voted 47 to 15 in favor of reviving a 1990s-era policy that previously triggered a surge in extrajudicial killings in the city's favelas before it was scrapped in 1998. The new measure, backed by allies of former President Jair Bolsonaro, offers bonuses of up to 150% of salaries for seizing heavy weapons and killing suspects. Supporters argue it is necessary to combat Rio's powerful drug factions, drawing comparisons to El Salvador's tough anti-crime crackdown, The Guardian has reported. But activists and legal experts warn the law is unconstitutional and will disproportionately target young black men in poor communities, amounting to de facto death penalty. The bill now awaits approval or veto from Rio's right-wing governor. Moldovan oligarch Vladimir Plahotniuc, long considered the country's most notorious fugitive, has been extradited from Greece to face trial. The 59-year-old is accused of masterminding the 2014 theft of the century, when $1 billion vanished from Moldovan banks, equivalent to 12% of the country's GDP. Plahotniuc was arrested at an Athens airport in July on an Interpol red notice while attempting to fly to Dubai, Greek officials have said. He spent 2 months in detention in Greece before being handed over to Moldovan authorities on Thursday under tight security. Once the most powerful figure in Moldova's Democratic Party, Plahotniuc denies wrongdoing and fought extradition for years, Al Jazeera has reported. His first court appearance is set for September the 26th. The timing of his return is politically charged, coming just days before Moldova's September 28th parliamentary elections, viewed as a referendum on closer EU ties versus alignment with Moscow. 7 Buddhist monks, including nationals from India, Russia, and Romania, died when a cable-operated rail cart overturned at a monastery in northwestern Sri Lanka. 6 others were injured, with 4 remaining in critical condition, police have said. The accident occurred on Wednesday night at a forest monastery about 125 kilometers from Colombo. Preliminary reports suggest the cable-driven cart lost control while descending an incline, though police are still investigating. The cart ran alongside a steep stone staircase used to access the monastery's higher grounds. The monastery is home to more than 200 monks and is renowned for meditation retreats and spiritual training, India Today has reported. Founded in the 3rd century BCE, it is one of Sri Lanka's oldest surviving forest monasteries. Today is September 26 of 2025, and on this day in history, in the year 1580, the English navigator Francis Drake returned to Plymouth aboard the Golden Hind, completing a full circumnavigation of the globe. In the year 1777, in the midst of the American Revolution, British troops occupied Philadelphia, a major political and strategic hub at the time. And in the year 1820, American frontiersman and pioneer Daniel Boone died in Missouri at the age of 86. September 26 is also National Compliance Officer Day, a day honoring professionals who help organizations adhere to laws and regulations. President Donald Trump signed a presidential memorandum on Thursday directing the government to intensify investigations into groups suspected of supporting domestic terrorism and organized political violence. The move comes after the recent killing of conservative activist Charlie Kirk and other violent incidents, including a fatal shooting at a Dallas ICE facility. Trump claimed that, quote, wealthy people are funding political violence, blaming the radical left for these attacks. Attorney General Pam Bondi said the targets would include, quote, any organized group who is committing these crimes, but no specific organizations were named. Trump later signaled out liberal donors George Soros and Reid Hoffman, CNN has reported. The Open Society Foundations, led by Soros, called the memorandum a, quote, politically motivated attack and rejected accusations of funding terrorism. The Department of Justice sued 6 states, including California, New York, Michigan, Minnesota, New Hampshire, and Pennsylvania, for not providing sensitive voter data requested by the department. Attorney General Pam Bondi said accurate and secure voter rolls are essential to free and fair elections, and states failing to comply will face DOJ lawsuits. The requests include private information such as names, birth dates, partial Social Security numbers, and driver's license numbers. Minnesota Secretary of State Steve Simon said his office had responded to all DOJ inquiries and requested assurances on how the data would be used and protected, which the DOJ did not provide. The DOJ's actions comes amid heightened political tensions, including the indictment of former FBI Director James Comey. Earlier this month, the DOJ filed similar lawsuits against Maine and Oregon, and has requested voter registration information from at least 26 states in recent months, The Hill has reported. Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon said the efforts aim to prevent voter fraud and maintain public confidence in election integrity. Jeffrey Todd West, 50 years old, was executed in Alabama by nitrogen gas for the 1997 killing of Margaret Parrish Berry during a gas station robbery. West apologized to Berry's family and expressed peace after being baptized in the Catholic Church, while Berry's son Will had pleaded for his life to be spared. Berry was shot execution-style in the back of the head, and $250 was stolen from the store's cookie can. During the execution, West appeared to struggle for breath and exhibited involuntary movements before being pronounced dead. Alabama Governor Kay Ivey upheld the death sentence, emphasizing the law and justice for Berry's murder. Will Berry later expressed forgiveness toward West and condolences to his loved ones, noting that West had acted out of character, CBS News has reported. The Federal Defender's Office criticized the denial of a final meeting between West and Berry, calling it a lost opportunity for closure and reflection on capital punishment. A 911 outage affected multiple states for several hours due to fiber cuts in the telecommunications systems, officials have said. Mississippi Governor Tate Reeves reported that the state's 911 systems were impacted but were restored within about 2 hours. The Mississippi Emergency Management Agency continues to monitor the situation. In Louisiana, Orleans Parish Communication District Executive Director Carl Fasold said the fiber cut in Mississippi caused a 911 outage across most of Louisiana and Mississippi. Fasold indicated there was no evidence that the outage was malicious. 911 service in New Orleans was restored by late afternoon and functioning properly, ABC News has reported. The Alabama 911 board clarified that no outages were confirmed in their state despite some reports. Open carry officially begins in Florida on Thursday, following an appeals court ruling that deemed the state's ban unconstitutional. The First District Court of Appeal ruled on September the 10th that prohibiting open carrying firearms violated the Second Amendment. Florida Attorney General James Upmeyer instructed law enforcement not to arrest or prosecute law-abiding citizens visibly carrying guns. The decision overturns a 1987 law that made open carry a misdemeanor, punishable by fines or jail. While the ruling allows open carry, the judge, Stephanie Ray, noted that it is not absolute and remains subject to reasonable regulation. State and federal restrictions on carrying firearms in certain locations still apply, CBS News has reported. Florida lawmakers will need to clarify further specifications in upcoming legislative sessions. Tabitha Bundrick, 38 years old, was indicted in New York on felony charges for using fentanyl-laced drugs to rob 4 men, resulting in 3 deaths. The Manhattan District Attorney confirmed nearly a dozen counts, including murder, robbery, burglary, and assault. Bundrick allegedly supplied the deadly synthetic opioid between April of 2023 and February of 2024 to incapacitate her victims. Prosecutors say she targeted men, leaving them unconscious to steal money, phones, watches, clothing, and sneakers. Authorities recovered 4 pairs of the victim's shoes during a March 2025 search of Bundrick's home. Fentanyl is illegal without a prescription and is often mixed with recreational drugs like cocaine, the USA Today has reported. District Attorney Alvin Bragg called her actions, quote, calculated and callous, deliberately endangering lives to commit theft. 3 men have been charged after a Houston youth baseball coach was shot during a pre-game prayer. The incident occurred at Ameripark, known as the Rack, in Katy, Texas, where 3 individuals fired weapons from a nearby pasture toward the field. Video footage showed 12-year-old players running for cover as bullets flew past them. The 27-year-old coach was struck in the shoulder while protecting the children and was treated on site before being released from the hospital. Waller County authorities said the suspects are all being held on $100,000 bond each on felony charges of deadly conduct with a firearm, Fox News has reported. Parents expressed safety concerns and indicated they would avoid returning to the field, prompting the facility to announce enhanced security measures. Houston Warriors founder Andy Baez praised the coach for shielding the children, potentially preventing a major tragedy. Blaine Millam, 35 years old, was executed Thursday in Texas for murdering his girlfriend's 13-month-old daughter, Amora Carson, in December of 2008 during a brutal 30-hour exorcism. Prosecutors say Millam beat, strangled, bit, and mutilated the child, causing skull fractures, broken bones, and dozens of bite marks. He was pronounced dead by lethal injection at 6:40 p.m. local time at the Huntsville unit after appearing anxious upon arrival. Millam maintained his innocence, claiming he was following his girlfriend Jessica Carson's instructions. She was sentenced to life without parole. His attorneys argued for clemency, citing unreliable bite mark evidence and questions about his intellectual disability, but the courts denied appeals and postponed the election twice, Fox News has reported. During his final statement, Millam thanked supporters and urged faith in Jesus Christ. Texas, the leading death penalty state in the United States, carried out the execution despite years of appeals and publicity surrounding the case. Renee Madison and her family discovered a 2.79-carat brown diamond at Crater of Diamonds State Park in Arkansas while visiting for her nephew's birthday. The family had brought shovels and screens to hunt for stones near the Prospector trailhead. Park staff confirmed the stone, named the William Diamond, has unique inclusions caused by plastic deformation during its formation, giving it its brown color. The diamond is the third largest found in the park this year, following a 2.30-carat stone in July and behind the 3.81-carat Duke diamond found back in May. Crater of Diamond State Park spans 800 acres, attracts over 100,000 visitors annually, and has yielded more than 75,000 diamonds since 1906, CBS News has reported. Visitors often spend 2 days searching as a New York City woman found a 2.3-carat diamond for her engagement ring after 3 weeks of hunting. A United Express flight operated by Commute Air overshot the runway while landing at Roanoke-Blacksburg Regional Airport in Virginia on September the 24th. The plane, with 50 passengers and 3 crew members on board, ran off the paved runway onto emergency stopping equipment due to insufficient braking distance. No injuries were reported, and all passengers and crew were safely transported to the terminal, USA Today has reported. The airport temporarily shut down, with partial operations resuming around midnight and full operations by 7 a.m. local time on September the 25th, though some flights experienced delays. The FAA and the NTSB are investigating the incident. Alright, it's 36 past the hour, and I hope you all are enjoying the show so far today. Hey, real quick, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you can stay updated on all of our news. And now here's our last news block for the day. Turkish Airlines plans to expand its fleet with 225 Boeing aircraft, including 75 long-haul B.c.begley-910s and 150 737-810 MAXs. Deliveries for the B.c.begley-787s are scheduled between 2029 and 2034, with engine and maintenance deals in progress with Rolls-Royce, GE Aerospace, and CFM International. The announcement followed a meeting between Turkish President Erdogan and U.S. President Donald Trump, who recently hinted at easing restrictions on advanced U.S. fighter jet sales to Turkey, ABC News has reported. NBC Universal warned it may pull its networks including NBC, Telemundo, Bravo, CNBC, MSNBC, and USA Network from YouTube TV if a new distribution deal is not reached by September the 30th. NBCU criticized YouTube TV for demanding preferential treatment and said customers could lose access to major shows and sports. YouTube TV responded that NBCU's rates are too high, promising a $10 credit if content is unavailable. This marks the third recent public pay TV dispute involving YouTube TV, which serves over 8 million U.S. subscribers, Axios has reported. If unresolved, both NBCU and Univision Telemundo content could simultaneously disappear from the platform. Starbucks plans to cut 900 corporate jobs, close unprofitable stores, and freeze open positions as part of a $1 billion restructuring under CEO Brian Niccol. The company aims to reinvest savings into store improvements, adding staff, renovating 1,000 locations, and introducing a new 32-seat drive-thru prototype in 2026. U.S. same-store sales fell 2% in its latest quarter, and the company expects a 1% reduction in North American store count this year, Yahoo Finance has reported. Niccol emphasized enhancing the in-store experience over pickup-focused models. Asteroid 2024 YR4, once thought to have a small chance of hitting Earth, now poses a 4% chance of striking the moon in December of 2032. While a moon impact would not directly harm humans, it could create a massive debris field, threatening satellites and space stations. Scientists suggest 2 main options: deflecting it, ideally by nudging its orbit early, or destroying it. Deflection requires accurate mass estimates, which are uncertain and challenging to measure from afar, making reconnaissance missions critical by the year 2028. Existing missions like OSIRIS-APEX or Psyche could potentially be repurposed for this, though they'd need to abandon their original targets, Science Alert has reported. If deflection proves too risky, destruction remains a viable alternative. SpaceX completed its third Falcon 9 launch in under 41 hours with the Starlink 1711 mission, lifting off from Vandenberg Space Force Base on Thursday night. The rocket deployed 24 Starlink V2 mini satellites into low Earth orbit just over an hour after liftoff. The first stage booster B-1082, flying for the 16th time, successfully landed on the drone ship Of Course I Still Love You, marking the 153rd landing for that vessel and the 512th overall booster landing. This mission represents SpaceX's 475th launch using a flight-proven booster and the 540th Falcon 9 launch overall, Spaceflight Now has reported. The rapid succession of launches highlights SpaceX's growing cadence and efficiency with reusable rocket technology. Researchers from the University of Haifa uncovered a rare Byzantine hoard at the ancient city of Hippos near the Sea of Galilee, including nearly 100 gold coins and dozens of jewelry fragments. Likely hidden by a wealthy resident, possibly a goldsmith, the treasure remained undisturbed for roughly 1,400 years. The coins span about a century, and include rare denominations like Simesis and Trimesis, as well as a coin minted at a military mint in the year 610 CE. The discovery provides new insight into life in Hippos during the late Byzantine period, highlighting emergency hoarding practices during times of conflict, the Times of Israel has reported. Archaeologists also noted the mix of coins and jewelry suggests the hoard belonged to a private family rather than a church or a public institution. Alright, it's 41 past the hour. That is our show for today. I hope you all enjoyed it. I will see you all on Monday, at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time for another episode of The News with B.C.Begley. And until then, I hope you all have a wonderful weekend.